Hi, my name is Rhett Finch. This is Beth, Howe. We are the co-founders of Doom Solutions, a company focused on creating workflow tools for visual effects and post-production professionals. I'm also a picture and visual effects editor in episodic TV, and Beth is a VFX producer in feature films. So we've combined our years of... Just eat it? Oh, there we go. Microphone. So we've combined our years of experience and varied specialties to create and develop software that saves our users hours of time every week. Our first product is called Marvin. Bring it up here. This is a FileMaker-based app that is a data translator for all of the common and hard-to-read data exports from Media Composer, such as EDLs, XMLs, ALEs, and marker and subcap files. There's also a patented change list tool for comparing two versions of a cut, a submissions tool for cutting in hundreds of different versions of visual effect shots in minutes rather than hours. And we also have an integration with Final Draft and Scripty files. So when Avid introduced the panel SDK, we jumped at the opportunity to basically integrate everything from Marvin directly into Media Composer. And thus the birth of our panel, Marvin Jr. So our ultimate goal is to port all of those features from Marvin directly into Marvin Jr. It all depends on the Avid API and what it allows, because we want our users to keep their eyes on the timeline and not have to deal with importing and exporting all of these different files into other applications to do whatever data manipulation that they want to use. So far, we have added a number of different actions for better marker management, as well as a workflow for a multi-finding clips to find a subset of clips within a bin. The first thing that we're going to take a look at is our shot ID settings. So if you're not familiar with visual effects, the shot ID is a unique code that identifies the specific segment of footage within the cut that will require visual effects work. And it's broken up into different components. This includes the show code, episode number, scene number, sequence code, and shot number. But every show is different. Everyone wants to do it their own way. So Marvin Jr. lets the user customize it based on their needs. So I'm just going to clear this out for a second. And I'm going to set this up for the traditional episodic TV shot ID convention. So that's going to be the show, episode, scene, and shot. And then I also have some underscores. And then I can just reorder these. And now I can scroll down, I can see I have my sample data that I can input in here, and then I can make sure that my shot ID, the convention itself, is matching exactly what I'm expecting, and that the breakdown also is separating everything in the way that I intended it. So next I can go to my marker settings. Markers also play a vital role in visual effects workflows because they are what tracks the actual visual effects shots within the timeline itself, using that shot ID. Now, it's helpful to include the description of what the visual effects work is in your timeline. The problem is there's not a way to easily remove that later down the line when you need to do your turnovers to vendors. So a lot of shows either choose to not use descriptions, which then they're losing out on the benefit of having that information to keep everyone on the same page, or they do use them, but then their turnovers just take a lot longer because they have to go through and manually remove them. So Marvin and Marvin Jr. are the only software that actually allows users to include the shot ID as the primary data and a description as secondary data by defining a specific delimiter between the two. We provided the most common examples, such as a space hyphen space, a colon space, or a space. But again, every show is different, so everyone wants to do it their own way. So they can also type in here whatever configuration that they use for their show, and they can use that as well. So I use space-space on my shows, so I'm going to switch this back, and now we can take a look at actually everything that Marvin Jr. can do and how it uses these settings. I'm going to jump into adding text, reposition this here. So we all know that you can select a group of markers, right-click on them, and change the color or the track very easily, very quickly. That's great. But what about everything else? Right now in Media Composer, you can't en masse change any other data, any other marker data that you may want to modify. So I have my sequence, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to drag it into here. And our adding text action will add any text before or after whatever marker data you want. And the fields that we have is the shot ID, so that's that primary data, the description, the secondary data, the comment as a whole, or just the name field. So for right now, I'm going to go ahead and add NBA underscore. And go ahead and then click add. And we can see NBA underscore was added to the beginning of all of my marker comments. And then I'm like, crap, we're at NAB. We're not at an NBA basketball game. So I want to undo what I just did. I'm going to click undo. And we can see that all those changes that we just made have been reverted, and we're back to our original markers. So let's change this back, correct it, NAB. And I want to update the name, and you know what, I just want to do the yellow markers. So that should be these two right here. I'll click add, and we can see that only our yellow markers were updated with NAB underscore at the beginning, and all of the others have not been modified at all. So our next action that we can take a look at is changing case. I'm going to skip over auto numbering. We'll come back to it in a couple of minutes. Open my sequence, and then I'll just drag it into Marvin Jr. And so for this first example, you know what, I'll take a look at the name again, and I'm just going to make all of these uppercase. Scroll down and click change. And now all of our markers have been updated to uppercase. And I want to change some more. So let's do the description this time. Let's make those uppercase also. Click change. And you can see that just that secondary data, the description is what got updated, and the primary data, the shot IDs, were completely left alone. Up next is replacing text. As the name implies, this just allows you to replace any marker data within a specific field. So, for instance, say you don't like to see everyone's different usernames in the main column. You like your markers to be categorized in some specific way. So if I take the name, and I like my green markers to be VFX, I can say replace. Just my green markers have been changed. I'm going to replace more, and then likewise, I like my yellow markers for sound. And I can just replace those. And now these two have been updated as well. So currently, you know, the only way to change the name is to go in here, say edit marker, say VFX, turn, edit marker, VFX, return. In the time it took me to do 2 of them, I could have done my entire list. All right, substituting text is next. Open my sequence, drag it in. So substituting text is a case-sensitive action. And what we can take a look at here is a little discrepancy where our user Neo maybe he hadn't had his morning coffee yet, or he's just lazy and he copied and pasted the show code incorrectly on these 4 shots. So, for 4 shots, you could just go in and quickly update these. But if they had done this for an entire reel, it would take you a long time to individually go in here and individually update each one of them with just that little section. So I'm going to take a look at my shot ID, and I'm going to replace DOOME all uppercase with lowercase, say substitute, and we can see that now all of his are in line with everybody else's. Our next action is turnover prep. So this is one of our more visual effects workflow actions, because it adds a suffix to the shot IDs and also removes the descriptions, which we were talking about earlier. So if I look at my timeline, let me bring up my turnover prep sequence. So I have my turnover prep sequence, so it's a copy that I've made. I'm getting everything lined up, and I have my background plates are on V1, and then I have a foreground plate on V2 and foreground plates on V3 as well. So part of the whole turnover process to the vendors requires that each different element of a shot gets a specific descriptor added to the end of it, so that they know exactly how to use it when they're constructing it. So in this instance, I'm going to drag turnover prep in, and the first thing I want to do is I want to add underscore background 01, and I just want to do everything on V1. And we can see here that our initial marker that has the shot and the description on the end is going to have BG01 added to the end of it, and the marker is also going to be removed. So let's do that. Let me go and sort these, and so we can see everything here on V1 has been updated. Now I want to prep a few more, and let's do our foreground 01, and those are going to be on V2. There we go. Let's see these guys right here. And then finally, foreground 02, and these are going to go on V3. And so now these are all set to go. Now, every sequence is different. Every turnover is different. Obviously, you have to have everything lined up the way that to make sure everything is correct, and that Marvin Jr. updated everything and modified the markers in the way that you expected. However, as we were talking about before, Marvin Jr. actually allows you to include the VFX descriptions within the markers during the entire cutting process. Because at this point, while you're doing your turnover, those descriptions can be removed immediately, so easily, without any effort. So it's basically the best of both worlds. And let's see, now we can switch back to auto numbering. Gonna drag my sequence in. So let me resort these as well. Here we go. So Marvin Jr. can also automatically generate all of those shot IDs based on the marker data. So let's just take a reminder of our shot ID settings right now. And we've got our show, episode, scene, and the number. And so normally I could go in here and I could say, okay, this is Doom 101, 001, 100, and then maybe I'll copy, I'll paste this, change this to 110, I'll paste this in here, this will be 120. So obviously you can see this just takes a long time. It makes it super easy for you to introduce errors or possibly even duplicate IDs down the line. So I'd rather have Marvin Jr. take care of that for me. And all we have to do is instruct it where does each new scene start. So I'm going to put a marker with the scene number on the first shot of each scene. And then every blank marker after that is just going to be sequentially numbered within that exact same scene until it reaches the next marker. And then it'll start numbering over again at 100 or whatever numbering system you introduce, and so on down the line. So let's go ahead and number these pretty quickly. So we've got episode 101. I'm going to start my numbering at 100 and increment by 10. If I want, I can also update the color on these or switch these all over to VFX. I'll say number. And so we can see that all of our scene ones starts at 100, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 170. Starts over again at scene 2. And then starts over again at scene 3. So clearly, again, the time saved and not having to run the error of like skipping a number or adding a duplicate number will definitely be a benefit down the line. So let's take a look at a little bit more complicated scenario, and that is with feature film conventions. So feature films do things a little bit differently than episodic TV. They tend to use a sequence code rather than a scene, as well as the shot number. But sometimes they also use the scene. And then the other variation is that for the feature films, the numbers need to continue numbering through the scene, but actually have to restart once it gets to a new sequence. Sounds confusing? It is. All we need to do, though, is just tell Marvin Jr. What scene it is, add an underscore, and then put the sequence code. So I've also added a couple of descriptions in here. So this allows you to add descriptions up front during the cutting process before you've numbered, because numbering happens at different stages for all shows. There's no set time to do it, and you may want to go ahead and add information on here before that actually happens. I've also included an instance here where we're switching from sequence BB, we're cutting away to CC, and then we're coming back to BB again. And so the expectation is that when you return to BB again, it's going to continue numbering exactly where it left off to make sure that all of your numbers are still unique. What we need to do first is go back into our shot ID settings, and let's get rid of the show, get rid of the episode. We're going to leave scene shot. I'm going to add sequence, reposition this here. Again, scroll down, and I can see I've got my scene number, sequence code, the number. You know what? I want 4-digit padding on these shots. Scroll back up and go back. And so in this instance, I still want to start numbering at 100, but this time let's just increment by 5. And I'm going to say number. So we can see, again, 100, 105, 110, and then we get to our B's, 100, 105. C starts over again, and then B, we left off at 105, and right when we come back to it from that intercutting, we are now at 110, 115, 120. And now we can take a look at multi-find. Multi-find is also another visual effects action that will find a subset of clips and update their columns. So on visual effects shows, the visual effects editor will maintain a bin that's usually called an all VFX bin. And it contains every visual effects version from all the different vendors throughout the course of that episode or the film. Depending on the complexity of the show, this could be hundreds of shots, it could even be thousands of shots. When it comes time to do your turnovers to online or the DI, essentially the VFX editor will get a list of the specific final versions that need to get sent on. So here's an example of all of the specific versions that were emailed to me that I need to now find and send on to the DI. how am I going to find all of these within this bin of hundreds or thousands of shots? Well, right now, everyone copies and pastes this here because all we have is a singular field to do our searching and filtering. I would now take this shot and copy it off into my new bin, go to my next one, paste it in, find this shot, move it into a new bin. Let's just do 3 really quick, or not really quick actually. Paste that in, grab this shot, move it into a new bin. Obviously, very slow, very tedious. So I'd rather have Marvin Jr. take care of all this for me. So the first thing I'll do is I will select all of my clips, and I'm just going to drag it into Marvin Jr. And it's going to process all of these. It's going to analyze all the different clips. And we can see that we've got 200 in here, and that also matches what we can see down here. And now I have my list of finals that I need to find. I'm going to copy those, paste them down here, and then this 100 clips, and click check. All right, so we had 2 missing. Obviously, common occurrence, something went wrong. Either these versions themselves weren't in my all VFX bin. This could be because I actually never got them in editorial, which likely means that they aren't actually in a cut anywhere. Could have also just been a typo on the part of whoever sent me this information. Regardless, I don't want this to slow me down in any way, so I'm going to copy and paste these somewhere else so I can take a look at them after I'm done with everything. And for now, I will delete those and just run a recheck. And now we can see that we have these 98 clips. Everything is all good here. So now if you're only wanting to find these clips in the bin, which is the process of what we were doing just a minute ago, you don't want to make any changes to them just yet. I can just click update. And if we scroll down, we can see, there we go. Selected 98. I don't know if that's too small up there, but that matches our 98 clips here. It took less time to find 98 clips than it did just those 4 a minute ago, having to do them all manually. So when you're ready to actually make some changes, I'll say update more. I want to update these clips, and I'm going to set the sent to DI column to today's date, 28/24. What is today? Today is 04/15. I'm going to go ahead and create a new bin also. And then click update. So updating the clips is going to take just a moment. So we'll wait here until all of these get populated. There we go. And there's our new bin. So I can take all of these and drag them in and finish the rest of my turnover process. Obviously, much faster than having to do any and all of this by hand. So this is everything that we have in Marvin Jr. right now. It is definitely our full intention of adding as many features as possible from Marvin, so that we can essentially save our users as much time as possible and streamline their visual effects and editorial workflows.
Learn more at doomsolutions.com.